Welcome to the Unriveted Podcast, where we talk about technology initiatives such as digital transformation, artificial intelligence, and people. John, today this podcast is brought to you by guess who?
You let me know.
I'll let you know. Guess what? Our book, which has been pushed out to every platform as an ebook, Artificial Intelligence in a Weekend, an executive's guide. With that, John, that was our selfish plug. Please introduce our guest.
I think we can drop another selfish plug at the end too. You know, there's not enough room for too many. So thanks, Martin. Today we are joined by Shayna Rose Mordue, a branding and marketing consultant. And Shayna comes with a background that isn't typical of our guests here on the Unriveted podcast. Shayna's background is in the entertainment industry, and she has recently transitioned into this branding and marketing role, being in the lead of her own organization and founder of Intralight. So Shayna, welcome to the Unriveted Podcast. As I told you before we started recording, we like to keep things conversational here and not to pepper you with too many questions, but I think you would probably do a much better job of introducing yourself than myself or Martin would. So we'll turn it over to you. Give us a little bit about your background, where you came from, where you're at right now, and then we'll just let that guide the rest of the conversation. So if that's all right with you, Shayna, I will turn it over to you.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, John, Martin, thank you so much for having me. I was so flattered by your invitation and so intrigued by this podcast you guys have. So I'm thrilled to be here. And yeah, I'm happy to share a little bit about my background. It's definitely an unusual path that I've taken into the world of startups and branding and marketing. It's true. My background is in entertainment. I was an actress and a singer for 20 plus years, actually starting from childhood professionally. I moved to LA in 2002 when I was just 18 years old to pursue a career. And I feel very fortunate that I had some really wonderful luck behind me. Anyone who tells you that life is not about luck is just lying to you. So much is about luck, and we should all be grateful for the luck that we receive. And yeah, I did that until my late 20s, early 30s when I transitioned into production. And it was actually in having to sell television shows that I really started to understand what branding and marketing was all about, because it really is about storytelling, understanding your audience, what gets people emotional, and how to have people resonate and attach to whatever it is that you are talking about or selling. So when I left production, it was this sort of, to me, a really natural transition into branding and marketing, because I realized, hey, I know exactly how to do this. I know exactly how to tell stories. I know exactly how to get people emotionally involved. And that is what brands need. So that is sort of then the last 10 years, I've been working with startups to sort of help them craft their stories, their messaging, and actually even help the founders more deeply understand their own story, right? And their own why, and how it is that they've come to want to be doing what they're doing, and be able to translate that to audiences in a way where they're going to feel a connection with them. So it's been a really interesting adventure, and I love every minute of it. And startups are their own crazy, weird, furry, wild beast. And now, now with the advent of AI, it is like a whole new level. So I'm very excited to talk about that and how it pertains to what I do and my perspective on it.
Excellent. And we're very happy to have you. We'll start off with some easy entry points for you, and then we'll probably find some incisions and some topics that will bring out the passion. But we met through a startup event, and I'm a startup person and been living the life, a good life actually, and very happy. And yes, luck 100% goes, with wind at your back, your sails open, you're going to flow. And if you're fighting the wind, it's all the luck you have doesn't help you. You're going to need a little wind at your back to help you. So they go together. So I appreciate motivation, intent, and luck together. This is awesome. Maybe let's get into some of the fun things about artificial intelligence that just make you wake up today and say, wow, if they only did this, or, ooh, why? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting, when I feel like when I kind of first came to understand AI, it was alongside everybody else when ChatGPT really kind of blew open and everyone all of a sudden got this overnight message like the world is going to be changed forever and this is the future. And it was just like, what? It just, right? It doesn't it feel like it kind of just like sprouted overnight? So obviously for the people who are in the industry, it didn't. But for the rest of us, it sort of felt like it came out of nowhere. And I've sort of been having this, I won't even call it love-hate relationship, but I'll say more like curiosity, fear relationship with AI, where, I'm seeing obviously the incredible things that it's capable of. And I think the thing that I want more than anything is just like a personal assistant. Like in my mind, I hear about AI, I see what it does, and I'm just like, why can't this thing just talk to me and like tell me everything that I need to do in my day, in my life, and like be my personal coach? Like that's always the thing that I'm wanting from it. Martin, you're about to,
Yeah,
you want to say something, say it.
absolutely. So it's funny. One of my startups is that personal coach, psycho analysis of your how you're feeling, looks at your emotions, uses computer vision to see your facial expressions, even smiles back at you. It's an interesting day out there. Not quite prime time for the budget that we're trying to do for this low end, but if the budget goes away and the sky's the limit, yes, this could be really, really entertaining for you.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And on the flip side of that, I think where my fear comes in is exactly, it's like the same coin, two sides, right? So when you say that to me, it's like, oh, I've got this personal coach and it's going to read my emotions and then it's going to talk to me and smile at me. I'm like, whoa, that sounds super freaky. Actually, I don't know if I want that at all. And I think the thing that, I think about, particularly coming from my background, and also one of the things I didn't mention is that for 5, 6 years, I was involved with an organization called Compassionate Integrity Training. And it's really about how do we as humans just become more compassionate and understanding of one another. And so I think, part of what we're at the precipice of is, have we evolved enough in our EQ for the speed at which AI is going to evolve in its IQ? And if we're not even up to speed in our own emotional intelligence, in our compassion, in our understanding of each other as people, how can we train AI to be that way? So that's
Mm.
kind of where right now I see a big gaping hole where I want someone to be out there raising their hand saying, I have a solution for this. And if they don't, at least maybe hopefully bringing in people like me or therapists or people who are in more of the psychological field, psychology fields, to really help them to make sure that these AI machines are going to be as benevolent as we would want them to be.
Very
Agreed.
true. Very
Jo-
true. Yeah, yeah. It reminds me, I had a question on the back burner, and maybe I'll save that one for a little bit. But since we started going down this path, we talk about the bias of AI systems, or how AI, is notorious for, uh, creating racist, or bigoted, or sexist, or outputs. Maybe not so much anymore as it was when ChatGPT first came out, but people blame the AI system, the large language model, for that. Whereas really, when you think about it, those models are all trained on information that humans created. So if anything, it's just a reflection of humans' own unfortunate bias and racism and bigotry. So thinking about that, and that it seems like where we're at right now is we're still putting up safeguards to stop these models from producing that kind of output. But what do you think is the future of, how are we going to be able to train these models so that they're not biased in the first place? Or is that even something that you think we'll be able to do just because of the nature of human beings and the content that we, generate on the internet? Maybe that's a kind of a long-winded question. Mine tend to be that way.
um, Martin, I definitely want to hear if you have anything to sort of piggyback that or have any of your own thoughts or questions on top of that, because it seemed like you were nodding your head in like in that sort of
Yeah.
whoa type of agreement.
Whoa. So Shayna, it's 100% human data, and it's confined to what has been, trained on. Are we picking up, let's just say the elephant in the room, are we picking up the other cultural experiences appropriately? Are we representing women appropriately? Are we representing other, gender types or pronouns objectively? Are we also, taking politics out of this for our purpose of our podcast, but are we representing a more moderate viewpoint without going extreme in general? And then what is a good sound practice? I mean, it's good in small bites in areas of focus, but when you widen the focus too much, then you start leaning all over the place to maybe it's not as effective. My goodness, your comments resonated so much when you said, basically I was thinking of a Dr. Phil statement, but I'm not going to repeat Dr. Phil, but it's sort of like, did your buzzard rear outrun your mouth is kind of one of his statements. And, I was thinking about EQ versus IQ running over who. And from that point of view, you're bringing up very important points. I think corporate America, startups have a lot to learn about EQ.
Right. Well, and if we think about it, that's really, I mean, when we think about where startups generally evolve out of, we're talking about Silicon Valley, and then there's a whole machine around this, right? And I, at least personally, so I'm not going to make any like sweeping commentary, but personally, I haven't experienced any sector of startups being great at EQ, nor do they seem very prepared at having a balanced view on sort of what I would call monetization versus social capital, right? So if everyone's always only so focused on their 10x unicorn return, but not what is this going to do to the future of people, or how is this actually going to improve people's lives, or are we looking at the potential downsides of what this could create? If everyone is always just so focused on that return, I think that I would call that one specific quality probably the thing that needs to be most checked or regulated. And this is where I think something like, what seems to be emerging now, like PBCs, right? Like public benefit corporations that are not only beholden to, shareholder value, but also have to really think about what is the benefit to the public, and could something that we're doing be potentially harmful, and how do we mitigate that? So I think I would like to see that trend make its way more and more into startups and into Silicon Valley and into AI. I would be fascinated to know how many AI startups right now have registered as a PBC. My guess is probably not that many. So, I think, John, how do we, you said, how do we do it? How do we do it, I think, is similar to what I think was tried to be instituted and has kind of failed when it came to DEI, when like big corporations were like, okay, we recognize that like we have this problem and we're not seeing things clearly, let's bring in these consultants. Unfortunately, the data's in on that, and it kind of divided people more. And as a compassion trainer, my response to that is right, because everyone started focusing on what was different than what was the same, right? We didn't focus on common humanity and the stuff that we all experience and we all go through, absolutely regardless of our gender, our race, our cultural background, where we grew up. Like, there are some things that are just human. And so I would like to see these AI companies bring in people who truly are experts on that, on what is common to all people. How can we connect and understand with all people, regardless of their background? Not necessarily trying to be like, okay, there's 5,000 different versions of people. How do we account for all that? No. How do we break it down to the essential things that we all experience? And how can that be sort of programmed with these models? So I would say that is actually the how, is like making sure that there is some kind of integration of people in, that's what I'm saying, psychology, compassion, these sort of more EQ fields that are trying to really bring people together and not talk about what makes us so different.
Yeah, I like your thoughts on that, and while you were saying that, it kind of made me think of when people talk about super intelligence in the next stage of AI growth, or artificial general intelligence, I guess, is the next stage, and then super intelligence, where these AI systems are supposedly more intelligent than humans. I think that that's a point that people don't typically talk about when they define intelligence. They think of intelligence as, can I add can I add two really big numbers together? Can I perform mathematical operations? Can I do this and that? But they don't talk about the can we create an empathetic AI system that has superior emotion control, or is more capable of being benevolent than the typical person is. So I think that that's a very interesting concept that I've never thought of when we talk about the growth of AI. Is how do we say there's two different kinds of intelligence: the scientific, mathematical intelligence, the logical reasoning intelligence, and then the empathy, the human side. How do we make AI more of what humans could be or should be than what we are obviously today, since we don't do a very good job of getting along with one another.
Right. It's so true. And it really, I think it's essential when you have a tool. We have this tool now that is going to be so incredibly powerful. I think we're at a pivotal moment in our history, really, where we have to decide, do we want to roll the dice and say to ourselves, well, let's just see where this goes? Or do we want to maybe pull back the reins ever so slightly to say, let's pause or slow down just enough to make sure that whatever it is that we're unleashing really is going to be for the good of the world and of all people. And I think that, at least again, what I've experienced and what I've seen of AI, it is so unbelievable, like blows my mind, the stuff that these language models are doing, that to me, if we don't have that, I see us going down a very bad road very quickly.
100%. And you think about governments getting involved, or governance, or policies, or corporate governance. And let me flip the coin the other direction. Evil, nefarious activities. By the way, you should watch our couple podcasts about nefarious activities that we do with ChatGPT. It's quite entertaining. So nefarious will always do bad things, and it's just a tool that helps them do bad things. So think of chaos and good, and we want good to prevail. And so, can we really regulate good? Can we mandate good? How do we control good? It's really it's such a difficult thing when I say it's good and John says no, it's not good.
Right.
I mean, isn't my good enough, John?
Yeah,
We would
exactly.
need an independent city, Mark.
Different ways to cut the pie up there. Yeah, is good enough, and whose good is someone else's not good, right? And that we see that everywhere. That's defined by cultural barriers, by religious barriers, by what have you. Which again, kind of goes back to the whole, how can we create something that can set aside those qualities of human beings that at one aspect make us unique creatures, but at the other time can also make us, cutthroat creatures to one another. So
The interesting thing is, I think if you survey most people, really the majority of people, and you ask them really basic questions, right? Like, what does it mean to be a good person? Honestly, most people are going to give you the same answer, right? They're going to be like, be honest, do what you say you're going to do, show up for other people when they're hurting. Like, I think that there are just some like very logical, like, regardless of whose version of good we're talking about, this is why I say in some ways it's the simplicity, it's the simplification of emotional intelligence that's important, not making it more complex, but actually more common to everybody. So I think in that version of good, Martin, we all probably have a very similar version of good, unless you are truly a nefarious actor, that like good is not a part of your vocabulary to begin with, right? In terms of regulation, it's so interesting because that also always makes me go, ooh, I like cringe a little bit, right? I think we all do, like, well, what will it mean and who will be in control of it? And like, it gets us all nervous and anxious. And part of what I used to do with the compassion training is it's really about calling on individuals to take on the responsibility, right? With what do they say? With great power comes great responsibility. And so it's really calling on those individuals to say, don't do things that would even prompt the need to be regulated. Like, regulate yourself, honestly. And if each individual person were to do that, even in the world and life, I think that we would be much further and much safer. And so for whoever's listening to this, again, if you're a technologist and you're an inventor and you're working on AI and you're an engineer and you're programming things, I would say, think of yourself, honestly, as being a superhero in the story of the future of humanity. And to realize that one person, each individual doing the right thing, thinking about, how do I want to train this model? And what good do I want to infuse? I actually think if each individual person who is a part of this thought of that and implemented it, we would be much, much safer in some ways than whatever regulation would come that people would want to fight against then, right? And there would be then, I feel like, almost like this opposition and a pushback then of like, no, I don't want to do it. But when we call on each person individually to say, you are a part of like the Avengers of the future, there's a different sense inside of them of wanting to be a part of creating a better world.
I like it.
It's
I
pretty
know
awesome.
it's a little pie in the sky, but I do it every day. And I think people think it has to be big, right? I think people think to make a difference, I have to be really big. I have to be known. I have to be famous. I have to have a lot of money. I have to have a position of power. But honestly, now as the creation and development of these opportunities becomes so democratized, really everyone has the power to do good. And I think as long as we embrace that, we're going to be okay.
I can see that. Johnny, you have a last question? We'll do a wrap up here.
Well, I was going to ask a question that's kind of not related to where we've gone so far. So,
do it. I love it. Left
all
field.
right. Well, yeah. It's not exactly out of left field, but it does pertain to your history being in the entertainment industry. And
Wait, John, are you asking for an autograph?
it's going to take a long time to get here if that was the case. So I don't even know how that would happen. So I did want your perspective on this. That I think it was last year, maybe it was the beginning of this year. I'm not sure. I want to say it was last year, but all the writers and actors strikes that were happening in Hollywood, and a lot of those were based on, not completely, but some of them. Some of it was based off of the use of AI in writing content, or I guess even maybe digitally creating actors that may take the roles of actual humans. I'm interested. You must have had some closer perspective on that just because of your past. I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts and what your take is on AI as it relates to the future of the entertainment industry.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Actually, this ties in beautifully. This isn't out of left field at all. This is exactly the same conversation because, right, this is about monetization and capitalism, just like everything else. So if the studios, if their basic value system is, well, the only thing that we have a duty to is this fiduciary duty to our shareholders, and we can make something for less by reducing staffing, by reducing the cost that we're paying for scripts, by reducing the cost that we're paying to actors or background. Why wouldn't we do that? We make more money, our shareholders make more money, right? Like, to me, it's just logical. So I understand why the writers and the actors were striking and why they wanted that in their contracts. And guess what? Maybe it's going to mitigate it for a moment in time. I don't think that it's mitigating it forever. I cannot imagine we were making the joke recently in just a small circle of friends, like, If you were in the horse and buggy business when the Model T came out and you just really wanted to hold on to that, horse and buggy business, you were in for a rude awakening, right? And you might have been able to hold it off a little bit again with like lobbying and unions and whatever. But eventually, when everyone wants a car, you're toast. And so this is kind of like, okay, so are we going to start also having a component within our business, within capitalism, within these endeavors where we say, hold on, we also have to think about people. We also have to think about society. And are we going to have a good society if we lose all of our artists? If we rob all of our artists, their ability to create, and we just give the job away to computers? Are we going to actually have a healthy, functioning world where people are happy and want to go out and buy things and watch movies and participate? I think the answer is going to quickly become no. So this is where I think we're going to have to start balancing. It was super scary for people. And I hope that the studios, as the years go by and they have more opportunity to take advantage of this, are able to, in this interim, see like, okay, we actually need to think about art now. We actually need to think about the future of humanity and not just our pocketbooks.
Very true.
This was a great talk, Shayna. Thank you for joining us on the Unriveted podcast. I think for our audience, this will be a nice eye-opener, a refreshing listen, and just a reminder for everybody out there to put a big old thumb up when you see the podcast, either visually or auditorily on your favorite network. And John, I got to do another shameless plug. We need to make sure that you look for our ebook, AI in a Weekend, an executive's guide. You find it at all those capitalistic ebook vendors that you can imagine. Okay, I'll name a couple: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, iTunes. Okay, I said it. There we go.
Next time we can have an addendum to the back of your book, guys. We can have in V2, we can have an addendum about EQ and emotional ethics of AI. We can create a new little section.
You're on. And so now the book's going to be Miller, Rose Mordue, Sukup, and Miller.
It could be an entire book in itself, Martin. Maybe we should start working on our second one already. It's worth a thought.
Yeah, this is a great one. Well, for the podcast, I want to say thank you and see everybody next time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.